Hi there, welcome to Halftime Huddle. It's been a bit of a break since last time we came along. Sorry for the little bit of a delay. We try and I've got to jump the gun a little bit. I've got a great guest to talk to, and obviously there's always a little bit of a technical issue. So generally we try and get a little bit early and stuff, but we hit some technical. So we're 10 minutes late. If you're still around, lovely. If you catch this on the replay, then brilliant. Say hi. For those people who don't know me or haven't come across this before, this is the Halftime Huddle. It's normally Wednesdays. It's been a bit irregular, but it's normally every Wednesday around about midday, where we have an opportunity either through having a chat with a guest or talking just to me over sort of topics to just have a little bit of break halfway through the week. Generally, we all, with the best will in the world, start a week with a lot of good intentions. Get to midday, hump day, midweek on Wednesday, hump day. And sometimes you think, well, where's it all gone? So this is the chance to, using a sporting analogy, to have your halftime, suck your lemons and your orange segments, get ready for the next half. So without too much further ado, I'm going to tell you what we're going to do today. We've got the lovely Gudrun Lauret, and I might have mangled her surname, but she'll tell me when I see her, when we bring her on. We met in a mastermind group a while back. We sort of fell out of contact for a short while, but a lovely summit last year with Susanna Ray, who's been on the Halftime Huddle, brought us back into contact, and I'm glad we have, because I'm looking forward to having this conversation with her. So without too much of a fluffing about, let's bring Gudrun in. Say hi. Hi, Gudrun.
Hello, hi Mark. Thank you so much for having me. And yes, you got my name. You got my name right. No worries about that one.
Gudrun's the easy bit. Laurette is
Yes.
sometimes the more fussy bit, because we all do. Is it a French background or?
It is. Yeah, my dad's stepdad was French. So they French would say Laurie, but we all just say Laurette because it's easier.
Yeah,
So yeah,
yeah,
we're used to just saying Laurette.
fair enough. Laurette Demar and all that kind of stuff. Laurette.
Yes, like that.
So, talking of French, I'm intrigued to talk. When we met ages ago, you were still up in Newcastle, but I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more about where
Yeah.
you are now. But in the meantime, really, I'd like, for those people who haven't come across you and have talked to
hmm
you, I'd love to hear. One of the things we talk about is your origin story, why you are doing what you do, how you got to what you do, and a little
hmm
bit of how you've morphed and migrated into what you do now. So let us know what do you do and why do you do it?
Yeah, so that's a really good question, and I think like a lot of people who are self-employed, I have changed what I do quite a bit, but the core of what I do is I'm a copywriter. So I have been a published writer for 28 years this year. I started out writing for anybody in the UK will be familiar with Waterstones, the bookshop. They used to have a teenage magazine that was reviewing the latest teenage books and interviewing authors. So I started out doing that. It happened to be based in Newcastle, but it was a national magazine. So I did that. I studied journalism. I studied communications at university. And then I spent 10 years working in admin, but mostly for the public sector. I kept my hand in with the writing and decided to become self-employed and eventually found my way back to copywriting, which is what I do today, a bit of content marketing, a bit of strategy. And what I do is I help people to communicate their messages more clearly so that they have a greater reach. The people I'm working with are people who want to make a difference in the world. They want to make the world a better place. So that's either entirely their focus or it's part of their focus. And I just help them to make sure that they're getting their messages out to people who will get behind their mission and support them and spread their mission further and to help them communicate more clearly and more regularly.
Brilliant. Well, congratulations for the 28 years. It's
Thank
surprising
you.
how the time flies.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're in the middle of the 25 years into the 21st century, and it just seems only yesterday that it was we were all celebrating the new millennium. But yeah,
Yes, I remember Millennium Eve. Just.
Absolutely, absolutely, and going to the London Eye and all the other kind of bits that the Millennium Dome and all that kind of stuff. So time just flies by. So congratulations
Really
on
does.
28 years. Um,
You.
uh, so, so you're as with a lot of people, there's a lot of checkered move and batter, and one of the beauties of the people I talk to is it's very much an evolution of the fact
Yeah.
that the whole of their life moves them in and out of different directions, and they bring their generally their whole life into what they do with as
Yeah.
solopreneurs, which is what I love about talking to people like yourself. Um, One thing I'm interested. You talked about Newcastle, but I recently learned. Well, I learned now you're not in Newcastle anymore. Where have you gone?
So I have gone from suburban Gateshead, which is the other side of the river to Newcastle, and I am now in the rural heartland of Brittany. We're right in the middle of farming country. So our neighbours are farmers or sheep. And it sounds like it must be very boring. It's tranquil, but it is never quiet. There's always something going on. People are coming and going. Animals tend to come and go quite a lot. They wander around. Yeah, so it's peaceful, it's beautiful, but no, it's not quiet. It's busier here than it was when I lived in Newcastle. Bit of a change, but yeah, we love it. We're happy.
And what prompted you to move from Gateshead to Brittany?
So my parents have had a holiday home over here for 25 years. My brother went to university in Belgium when he was 18, so he's been there 18 years now. He lives in Ghent in Belgium, and so he's settled there. He has no interest in coming back. Um, my parents moved over here permanently 4 years ago. So so we got to a point where we thought, well, actually, there's nothing keeping us in the northeast. My mother-in-law's in Ireland. My parents are here, my brother's in Belgium. We have friends and family back in the UK, but we wanted to make a change. We knew the area, we know some people. We can work from home, so my husband and I are both self-employed, so there's no problem from working from home now. So we thought let's take the plunge and let's do it. So yeah, 2 years it'll be in May.
Lovely, lovely. Brittany and Normandy is, in my experience, a lovely, lovely area, unfortunately, it's one of those areas where a lot of Brits just travel through because they're generally
Yes.
on the way from, if they've got the ferry or the boat to Dieppe or
Hmm.
Calais or whatever, they're zooming straight down towards the south of
Hmm.
France or Spain or whatever. But they miss out from, in my experience, of a lovely place, a great place, North France.
Yeah, it is. There's it's like I said, it is quiet in the winter, but in summer there is so much going on. Obviously the French will take August off as holiday, so the local authorities are really keen to have things on. So there's often weekly music programs. There's live music in all the local town halls. There's medieval festivals, which we love. Sometimes we get dressed up, which we also love. It's yeah, it's there's so much going on, and of course there's some absolutely stunning beaches here in
Mm.
Brittany. And yeah, obviously Normandy is as well. You've got the Mont Saint Michel. You've got all places like Honfleur, which are also lovely. So yeah, there's a lot going on. And it's a shame that people sometimes miss out. But we do get some tourists, and we get a lot of tourists from elsewhere in the world. Um, the Germans and the Dutch and the Spanish actually seem to like it here. So yeah, so there's plenty of people coming to enjoy it.
Lovely, lovely, and the Spanish do definitely like to escape from their heat and their beaches, which are invaded by the rest of Europe. They love to come to either North Spain
Yes.
or other places like France. Yeah, yeah. So I can imagine the Spanish are all over everywhere but Spain during the summer.
Yes. Oh, well, yeah, fair enough. I know they're not very happy about it. Sorry, I have a small dog who she's new to the family, and she's just adjusting. So if you hear little squeaks, it's not me. Honest, it's the little dog, I promise. Sometimes it's me, but it's not at the minute.
Another moment. Okay, we'll bear in mind. We'll let you off with the little dog. Is he or she has got a name? Name
We've
check.
decided to call her Ondine, which I think, yes, that's breaking news that we're calling the dog Ondine. That's a water spirit. I want to give her a Scandinavian name, but she's the most French dog in the world. She's actually a Brittany Spaniel. I'm gonna have to say Breton because I think she's Britney Spears. So yeah,
Okay.
she's a duck hunting dog. My husband found her on the side of the road on Sunday morning. So she's living with us.
Oh, interesting. Ah,
Yeah, this is the second dog we've ended up picking up from the side of the road, so quite
oh,
common here, sadly.
young dog or
We think she's about 3. The vet says she's been used for breeding.
okay.
So, yeah, so she's been abandoned because she's had too many puppies, so she's probably not much use to the hunt pack anymore.
Okay. Well, that lovely. I mean, the this I love this conversation because this is what I do these conversations because they go off on a weird tangent. This is not necessarily what I expected to start off with.
No, no, I know. I like tangents. Tangents is good. It's
Indeed,
normal for
indeed,
me.
and one of the beauties, and we will get back to the conversation because there's a question I wanted to mention about your dog, um, is that you know as small business owners we have the ability to and I suppose in longer but larger businesses it is as well, but we show our whole selves. So you know the fact that you've got a dog, the things you collect, the image in the background that you've got they're all
Yeah,
part of
eat juicy.
absolutely, they're all part and parcel
Yeah,
of who you are and what you offer, and helps you to connect with other people. So
yeah.
having information about your dog and all that stuff is brilliant. Is she how's she with new people? Because I know some dogs that have been um,
She is unbelievably friendly. I don't know if you can
brilliant.
see her here. There she is.
Hello.
She's yeah, she's really very friendly, which is quite surprising.
Mm,
She's not frightened of people. She's very comfortable with the other dogs we've got in the house. She's quite very confident. She did really well in the vets. You can imagine she's had a bit of a pummeling, a howking, as we would say in the north of England. Um, and she took it very well. She didn't cry. She didn't try and bite the vet, which the other dogs, the dogs try and bite the vet, but she didn't. She was very well behaved. So yeah, it's yes, it's good. We're looking after her, and she's getting there. She's very skinny, but she's not frightened, so that's
oh,
nice.
that's good. That's good because some of them obviously come from much like some humans come from a bit of a troubled background, and they
Yeah,
bring
exactly.
their trauma with them, which is quite nice that she's relaxed and sounds like she's in a good home, which is brilliant. So superb for that.
She is. Yeah, she is.
Good, good, good,
Yeah, she's probably gonna go to sleep here, so we can continue talking. She's not gonna be bothered.
good. No problem, no problem. Well, don't worry if she does start to get skittish. For this is the whole part and parcel of, as you say, working from home and being able to fit your private life and your public life in sort of into sort of the same sort of container, really. Sometimes, which is quite useful.
Yeah, and that was very definitely my driver for becoming self-employed.
Mm,
My health has been up and down, nothing serious, but I found very early on that I actually couldn't manage doing a 9 to 5 Monday to Friday
mm,
job. I have a condition that makes me sounds pathetic. It makes me very tired, and so doing traditional working hours just it wasn't practical. Um, and my because my parents had been self-employed, they both encouraged me to prioritize my health because you're the best will in the world. Your employer isn't going to prioritize your health. Um, and and yes, so that's why I became self-employed. So when I am tired or when I have I'm not very well, I just go and have a little lie down. Nobody's bothered. I used to sleep in the ladies' toilets at one job, so, because I couldn't stay awake. Um, so yeah, that has been a big thing for me just to be able to manage my time. Sometimes I work really late at night. Sometimes I work at weekends. I never work early in the morning because I'm not a morning person. I don't do meetings on a Monday and a Friday, and I think if you're going to be self-employed, you're going to run a business, I think you need to, it's really important to be able to factor in your preferences. And I think maybe that's not something that gets talked about enough, that actually, you don't have to do a meeting on a Monday.
mm,
You're the boss. It's up to you. If you need to we take the dogs out in the middle of the day because especially over winter when it's too dark to take them tea time. So I think yeah, I think if you're going to set up a business, make it work for you. You know, this should be a pleasure to have your own business, to do something that you're passionate about. Um, and you should be able to build it so that it works for you, rather than against you. I think that's
Absolutely,
my view.
absolutely, and in my experience, I mean, a lot of small business owners generally move into running their own small business and their own business because of the same sort of thing. They get tired of other people dictating the way they do things, what they do, how they do things, and they want to. Take more control and do things in a way that they feel better. But you're also right in the fact that if they're not careful, they then get sucked into doing things that are not necessarily built in supporting and helping them. So you're very right. Uh, it's something that probably we should be more conscious about, and often we are not conscious about how we do things.
Yeah, I think so. And I think, especially when you're new to business, I think there's a sort of tendency to want to do do the right, you want to make your client, keep your clients happy, and obviously that's really important, because without clients you don't have a business. But there's a tendency, I think, especially in the beginning, to bend over backwards and end up tiring yourself out. I think putting boundaries in place is good, and it's healthy, and it's good for the client as well. And I think, yeah, don't lose sight of the fact that you've set up a business for your own benefit, for your own sanity and well-being. Um, we're all human, and I think actually that was one of the good things to come out of the pandemic, if that's not too strange to say, is that actually we've normalized the fact that, yes, sometimes you're going to have a dog sitting on your knee, sometimes you're going to have a kid wandering in, and it reminds everybody that we are all human. And I think that's definitely a good thing, that really your lifestyle and your health and well-being are the most important thing, and your business should support that.
Absolutely, and unfortunately, there seems to be sometimes a little bit more of a from what I experienced from other people I know who are still working in corporate. There's an unfortunate drive for some people to bring people back into working in very strict,
Yeah.
very very organized ways, primarily because I think again, this is sort of off on a beaten track. I think that there are some managers who don't know how to manage by output, right? They manage by time and people sitting
Yeah.
on desks rather than the output. And whereas in a small business, very much like you say, you're measured on your output, not necessarily the hours you put into what you do. You're measured on
Hmm.
the success in the relationship you have with your customers, and very much that can be at your own sort of schedule and your own time rather than
Yeah.
necessarily. I mean, obviously, you have to bear in mind the the needs of your customer and your client. They have desires and needs and time schedules and stuff like that sometimes, but generally, there's plenty of leeway for you to fit it into your own time schedules and
Yeah,
find a
exactly
way
that.
that's a good medium for you. I love that, and that leads me into one of the topics I like to talk about is strengths and weaknesses. Your superpowers and your kryptonite, and very much. I know from having talking to you beforehand, you have a very much a personality around Idrisil behind you, etc. I'm very much a
Yes.
comic book geek myself as well, so I'm very much into superpowers and kryptonite and sort of strengths and weaknesses, which feels a little bit less daunting sometimes when people talk about what's your superpower as a superhero. Um,
Mm.
but that's one of the things that I think you lean into when you're running your own business is finding your the way you work better and the way you have to what can you not do and your superpower and your strengths, etc. And I love your story when you talk about how you've moved from doing working in corporate, working in businesses to going back to what is your strength, copywriting
Yeah.
and writing for and helping other people lean into that. Um, so in terms of you know the way you work, do you tend to help and support people become better writing for themselves, or do you do that? And because I know there are copywriters that will create copy for people, and there are copywriters that will help people to create their own copy.
Yeah, it's a bit of both. I would like to do more done with you rather than done for you. Um, f for me, obviously, it's I find writing easy. I've been doing it all my life, and I appreciate that not everybody does. So I want to help people to find a way that they can create their own content and write blogs in a way that works for them. Because it doesn't need to be a chore. I know it feels sometimes like it's like being back in English at school. And I know that people agonize over it. And I think one of the things that people still struggle with now is a need to be formal in their business writing. And and that's not the case. You will hear about all these things about, be yourself, and if you are a personal brand, which everybody who's a small business is, you are your business. And there's nothing wrong with sounding like yourself. And it's easier said than done. It takes time to find that bravery to go, actually, I'm a bit weird and this is what I do. But people want to know that about you. You don't have to write badly. You don't have to write long rambling sentences that your audience don't understand. But there's nothing wrong with bringing in your own interests. I mean, personally, my husband and I mostly communicate in film and TV quotes. We watch a lot of Archer, we watch of comedy films. So most of our conversations are actually just quotes. So yeah, you can bring that in, and like you said, comic books is a big thing, and everybody's embracing that. So that's what I want to do, is to help people to have the confidence to say, this is actually how I sound you know, um, that I know people who are comfortable with swearing in their business communications, and I think that can be quite effective because that repels the people who are going to be offended by that. I
Hmm.
think it's going to attract the people who who are similar. I actually swear quite a lot in personal life, but I don't tend to in my own work. Um, you need to find people who are going to be um on the same page as you. And the best way to do that is through your content and your copy and getting the tone of voice. So that's what I help people to do, is to find a quicker, easier way of creating that content. It doesn't have to be hard. You just need to be consistent with what you're putting out. Whatever, however you sound online is how you need to, that's how you are in person, because otherwise there's a disconnect. And if people meet you in person and they go, you don't sound like that online, then you're not authentic. And I hate the word authentic when it comes to business, but it is, you don't sound authentic, you don't sound like yourself, and then they're not going to trust you to do business with you. So the more you can be yourself, um, and feel comfortable with that. And it isn't easy. I know that, many of us who've come from a corporate background, we're used to having to dress smartly and, use Comic Sans because that's the council's chosen font. I don't know why, but it was.
Comic Sans,
Um,
amazing.
Comic Sans. All of our internal comms was written in Comic Sans. Um, so you get those things in your head that you're not supposed to talk about anything. Um, but I think going back to what we're saying about being rural people at the end of the day, that's it, it's really important. And in terms of a superpower, I think what I've got good at is digging into what people are really trying to say.
Mhm.
Despite the fact that I sound like I'm waffling quite a lot now, with my writing and my clients, we're digging right into what it is they really want to say. It's that thing about, what do your clients want, or what do they really want? It's how do you communicate that core message of what you do to help them. Is, there's lots of nice to haves about working with you, but really we need to drill down into that key message, the heart of what it is. And that's something I've got really good at, is actually pulling that out. I think it's probably the journalism background.
Mhm.
Because you're taught from the beginning to focus on the key things, the who, what, where, why, how. They teach you that right at the beginning. So I think that still is still true and still helps when you think about your communications, is put the most important things first and then pad it out. Help people get to know you through the other bits that you share with them.
No, I think you're right. There's a number. I could go over a number of different points there. The who, what, where, why, how, and trying to drill down to the root sort of the roots of the question is something I know a lot of people sometimes struggle with. But also, you're very right in terms of your writing generally, or maybe something like this, a video and stuff like that. But your writing generally is your first point of contact with your customers. And if that is different to who you are and what you are, and you're right. There's a disconnect. There's a jarring nature,
Yeah.
piece when they come to see you and talk to you, thinking you are one type of person or one,
Mhm.
and you're not, and that breaks all the trust you've built up by the communication you have beforehand, and that breaking of trust is very difficult to recover from. So you're very right. It is key to ensure that your communication has a synergy around it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, very definitely. And you mustn't be afraid of putting people off working with you.
Mm.
That's absolutely fine. If you get a snotty comment on a LinkedIn post, somebody says, "Well, I don't like this," you go, "Well, I appreciate your feedback. We obviously aren't a good fit." And that, I think, saves you a lot of time, rather than having, you might have a one-to-one with somebody you think is going to be a client, and then it turns out that they're not a good fit. You've saved yourself a lot of time there. And if it's even better because we've all done it where we've worked with a client who was a terrible fit, and you discover that 3 months in when you're ready to give up and go back to the world of Comic Sans at the council. So, be yourself right at the beginning, and anybody who doesn't like it, they just they call it they disqualify themselves, don't they? To use it yet another sporting metaphor. Get me sporting metaphors. Um, so that's fine. That is absolutely fine. Don't be upset by that. That's that you want those people to be out of the way. That's absolutely fine.
No, indeed, and you're you are so right. There are especially early on in your business. There's a lot of people who scrabble for any kind of contact, any kind of customer, and any kind of work, and they forget. It's down the line, like exactly what you say when you found yourself working for this one customer or this couple of customers who you are spending more time trying to get sort of stuff done with them than you would be with the people you gel with and you work well with. And trying to understand that from the beginning is quite hard because you don't want to turn people away. That's the challenge people find. You don't want to turn people away because it doesn't feel nice when someone's come to you to ask for something. You say, well, no, I can't help you. um,
Yeah.
and that sort of sometimes that is a very positive thing to do, to say no to someone, to say no to
Yeah.
a customer, because even if you think you might be able to do some kind of work with them, you're not going to do the best work with someone you don't gel with or don't link with, or you
Yeah.
don't have the wherewithal to do what they ask you for. So knowing that at the beginning and being able to say no is key. And you're right, disqualifying them from even coming to you in the first place by your writing and your copy is the first step of making sure that you get the right sort of people coming to you, and you could do the best job you can for the right people.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so when we talk about sort of writing and stuff, you talked about blogs and stuff. There's a lot of push now towards social media type posts and stuff like that. What would you say? And I know I saw something on your website, and we'll come to some of those later on when we look about you talk about helping people to write blogs and to create blogs and stuff like that. Is that what you focus on, or is it any kind of copy, or what would you say to people? Where's the best place for them to spend their time and
So
focus?
see, yeah, so sales pages aren't my strong point. I use you'll know Laura Robinson, I'm sure. Her sales page training is great. So my sales pages, I use her. But yeah, I mean pretty much any other kind of copy. What I have a client who I I basically am the podcast manager.
Uh-huh.
So I get the entire podcast done. I write the blog, I write the show notes, and I write the social media posts. And I think if we talk a lot about repurposing, and that's repurposing is still really valid because it saves you a lot of time. Um, so when you come in to create social media posts, don't reinvent the wheel. Just pick out the core messages from your blog, which should be apparent to you when you're writing them anyway. And then you just pull out those key bits and you write them for social media. And I do that for my clients. It's, having written a blog, I know myself which bits are the most important bits, so it's easy for me to pull them out and to share them on social media. And again, that is that who, what, why, where, how, when. You want to be sharing on social media. You want to be always driving people back to your website. Social media, as we know, is rented land. Um, don't give away too much in your social media posts, but tease enough that they want to go and read the blog. So, all of your content should all tie in to the same thing, and you're just sharing little bits or bigger bits. You could create a blog and then create an ebook from a series of blogs. So that's a bigger bit of content, but then you can break it down and share it on social media. And if you do it that way, then actually you've got a consistent, coherent thread running right the way through your content, because it's all come from one piece, or it's all come from the same. You've had the same goal. That's another sporting reference. My husband will be impressed. You've had all of this. You've got this very clear message, your call to action, if you will, that you want to share with people. So yes, but yeah, I write pretty much anything and everything. I do write emails, I write ebooks, I write what haven't I written? I've even written content for personal trainers that they use with their new clients, their park users, the health questionnaire. I've written their menu plans, all sorts. So yeah, pretty much anything that needs to be written, I have written and probably still do.
I'm getting the impression, from what I said, is driving your content and stuff from a core piece of content out towards other thing, is to pull people back into the core piece of content. Is that
Yeah,
sort of the
that's
process? Yeah.
exactly it.
Okay. There's a throwaway comment in there about podcasts, and one of the things I loved about you recently is you've just started a new podcast, and I've been
Yes,
we talk about
by accident.
brilliant. I've still got a couple of to listen to, but I'm loving catching up with them. So again,
Thank you.
as we go along towards the end, definitely please do name check your podcast, because there's some really great conversations amongst the people you've talked to. How did how did you collect all these? Are these just friends and colleagues and people you've worked for, and you simply.
Yeah. Yeah, so the first two seasons, so season two started last Thursday. So the first 12 interviews are all people I know. People like Susanna, who I've met at events, and yeah, most of them are people I've met at events. A couple of people, so the the first two of season two are people I've worked with, um, as part of an IT consultancy company. And yeah, the intention was, I, th- I, I think I think people get to know me better when they meet me in person. You've met me in person. I'm like this, but more full on. And I wanted a way to kind of capture that. And because I've worked with podcasters so much, and I did have a podcast in the past, I thought that was quite a nice medium. And I wanted people to have an opportunity to get to know me. But my plan was actually just to do a couple of sort of like a pop-up podcast. And then everybody got really excited about it, and said, "Oh, this is a great idea. We want to be your guest." So I'm now booking in guests for season four.
Oh, brilliant.
Um, so yeah, so it's somehow become a proper thing. I'm speaking to a branding guy, because my kryptonite is visuals. I am hopeless with visuals, so I'm gonna get my things rebranded. But yeah, so it's now a fully fledged podcast, um, with a queue of people to speak to and to publish their shows. So yeah, completely not the plan at all. But I thought I'd run with it.
And what I love about it is again, I like what I've found when I have these kind of conversations is they there's just an openness and a friendliness and a
Yeah.
confidence to just chat about whatever you chat about,
Yeah.
which I think is what people love, which is we talk about TV shows and you talk about shows, why things like Gogglebox is such a draw in, aren't you? People love
Yeah,
to see people
exactly. It's
just chatting in and talking about anything and everything.
Yeah, it's too much. I've just discovered because I don't watch TV. Um, I tend to just watch Netflix. But when I was in Edinburgh earlier this year for a conference, and I was in the hotel room on my own for a couple of nights, and I started watching Gogglebox, and I was like, "Well, this is why you don't watch it, Gudrun, because you'll never get anything done." But I mean, I did spend half my time Googling who are the celebrities. But it's a weird. I think it's a very British thing that what we really enjoy is watching other people watch the TV.
No.
What a peculiar thing, but it because the way they talk is the way we talk at home. You go, yeah, I thought that," and you do, and it's nice to see that everybody does that, and yeah, it does you need these cultural touch points to 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 bring us together and to find commonalities, and I think that's really important, and that is kind of what I've tried. Because the first lot of guests are people I know really well, and I know a lot about them, so I've been quite strategic with the questions I've been able to ask, and the order in which I've published the first two seasons is to get people I know well, who can help, who I know will give value to the listeners. But it's also given me a chance to practice the style I want to have, which is quite irreverent. Sometimes there are swearies. Um, but it's about being disruptive and about being creative. But it also is, I hope, is helpful to the listeners, because everybody is a small business owner, and they share a lot very openly about their own challenges and also when things have gone well. So I think there's a lot of value in it, in a bit of a weird, quirky way, which is me. Basically, I am weird and quirky.
No, indeed, and I love them, and we will name check them in the comments below. So so for those people who
Thank you.
are coming across this, and what it's a brilliant sort of uh, rambling conversations with some really interesting
Yes.
people. So do listen to them. Uh, talking of that, we you've mentioned a couple of things that you go through, and one of the things, there are a number of topics that I like to bring into this. You talk about questions and conversations, and I'm always intrigued about how people do things, and the process they go through, and the sort of tools and tips that they have, and the tools that they use. Podcasting is very much a very I think people love to listen to. There's a lot of
Mm,
people, but get a little bit um, be aware of what they need to do it.
mhm.
What are the sort of how do you go about sort of creating these podcasts? I mean, here we're just having a little video conversation. We're on Zoom. For those people who don't know the
Yeah.
fact, we're on Zoom in one area, and we're on another tool that's just showing the Zoom. So the tooling I know can be pretty simplified. So what are your favorite tools for doing something like that?
So for me, I have there are I because I've worked with podcasters, I kind of know the best tools to use. And the thing is that it's not, if you wanted to start a podcast, you don't need to think that you it's prohibitively expensive. Like you can have a little try with it without it being expensive. So I just use Zoom. I have to pay for Zoom because I do talk a lot. And I don't want that thing where you get cut off 40 minutes into the conversation. So yeah, I just use Zoom. I use my husband's my editor, so he actually just uses Audacity.
Mhm.
Um, I did my own visuals in Canva, which is why they're a little bit cack. But they are going to be season three. They will be much improved. And then in terms of the music, I was lucky. My brother's a professional musician, so he gave me my theme music. But you can buy theme music quite cheaply. Obviously, don't use a song. Don't use your from the top 40 hit parade. Don't use. I'm going to put the dog down. Don't use that because obviously there's copyright and licensing issues. So don't do that. And then in terms of a microphone, I bought a Yeti Snowball, which was
Uh-huh.
about 40, 50 pounds. And I have a pop shield, which is to deaden the plosives, which are natural when we're talking. That cost £10. So it's pretty much a very cheap setup. And then for distribution, I use Captivate, which I was introduced to back when we were in the Upreneur
Yeah.
incubator. Yeah, our friend Mark Asquith was recommending Captivate. He obviously built it. Captivate is incredibly easy to use. Um, and you just remember to switch everything on because I forgot that. I forgot to switch on the distribution, but Captivate will sync it out for you. It's a really user-friendly, intuitive tool. You can use it for to see your analytics, to see your metrics. It's not really something that matters to me so much because I'm just doing it for fun at the moment. But you can see who's listening, where they're listening, how they prefer to listen. So yeah, so it's yeah, if you wanted to try a podcast, don't be put off by thinking you need really, a lot of tech. Much like when you're doing video, the key is actually the quality of the audio.
Mhm.
Your audience will forgive you everything else, if your graphics are done in Canva and they look a bit rubbish. That's fine, so long as they can hear you
Yeah.
and they can hear your guest. That's the most important thing. So yeah, in terms of tools, it is fairly basic. Captivate is the main one because you have to have a way of getting it, disseminating it, getting out into the world. There are other things. And the good thing about Captivate is that if you wanted to, you could actually have more than one podcast on there. So I have my old podcast, which was about history. That's still there. That's still available. So, you can have more than one show. Should you get the podcasting bug and decide that one show is not enough. So yeah, it's very, very simple tools, but very effective, that work really well and do what I want them to do.
Brilliant, brilliant, and I love that, and you're very right. Uh, Wizzo, snazzy sort of layouts are all well and good for the pros at the top end, but most people are listening to this on a phone with their earphone, wandering down the street, walking their dog, or doing whatever they do. So as long as they can hear it, and or they're on watching this something on YouTube, as long as they can see it okay and hear it okay, then that's all they need, because it's about the interaction rather than the tech really that people are worried about.
Yeah, yeah, it is. But if you are one of those people who likes the shiny things, like I used to work with Pete Matthew, who does the Meaningful Money podcast. He loves tech and tools. So, he's got a studio that, you could just imagine Beyonce popping into to record. I bet he'd like that. If you like that sort of thing, and sorry, the dog's scratching. That's why my camera's wobbling. It's the dog. Um, so embarrassing. So yeah, if you don't think that you can't invest, if that's something you'd like to
No,
do,
no.
then by all means, go out and buy one of those boom mics that comes over your head that looks like a badger. Invest in whatever tools you want. Tim Lewis, who was a guest on my podcast, he has loads of great advice for tech and tools. So yeah, so do it, but don't get so caught up in the shiny objects that you forget the core thing. But yeah, there's lots of things that you can use, and then tools like what we're using now, like Ecamm, to disseminate your stuff in a different way. So yeah, just experiment and explore. There's lots of free resources out there that will point you in the direction of the tech and tools to use. Have a look at Colin Gray's stuff. Colin Gray's the podcast guy. He's the expert on everything. But everything I know, I learned from Colin. His stuff's he's got great blogs and it's all free. And
And
he has Alitu, which is a really good tool as well, which you can use. Um,
yeah,
so yeah, there's lots of resources.
no, absolutely, and you're very right. Don't if you want to play with all the techie stuff, and at the heart, I'm a techie. I love all the techie stuff as well. But if you want to, if that's holding you back, then don't let it hold you back. Just
Yeah.
oh, to be honest, you can probably go and do it with a microphone on your phone, and start from there. But audio, I think, is the real thing key. You want to start with at least.
Sorry, God, what are you doing? Oh my God, I'm so sorry. She's now climbed into a box of pens. She's not a, she's a hunt dog. She's never lived in a house before, so
Looking for stuff.
she's just adapting to life indoors.
Yeah.
Sorry, she'll settle down. Sorry. Anyway, please
No,
continue.
no problem. My son has lives over in Ireland at the moment, and he bought himself a beagle, and they're forever finding stuff that he's found and dug up and buried somewhere, and he's
Yeah,
forever digging into to looking for nooks and crannies, and anyone who walks past the front door is barked at, and it just they're very full of beans. Hit those kind of
they
hunt
are.
dogs.
They are. She's a Breton Spaniel, so she's
Mm,
yeah. Now she's getting used to the house. She's
yeah.
causing chaos.
Fun and games. Fun and games. Worse than a kid. Um,
Yes.
yes. So go back to the topics. There are loads of tools for you to play around with. I would imagine the same goes for the sort of things you write your software on. A typewriter or a typewriter. It shows me old school. Um,
I
a
love a good typewriter.
I, I used to. Well, the first thing I've written on and off for forever as well, and I there you go. There's a little bit of history about me. I When I was at sixth form college, I took typing because that's where all the girls were, and it's the best skill I've ever learned is typing, and I love it.
Yeah.
I love a good typewriter. So there you go.
Yeah, I tend to write actually my blogs by hand. I'm quite
Mm,
analog with my
yeah.
own stuff. So yeah, I tend to write in paper and pen, and
And
then
then what do you do? Do you there we go. We're going off on the track again. Do you then type it back into, or do you use the audio and transcription now to
no,
work?
no, I type it because I tend to edit it then when I put it
Ah,
into
okay.
Word. And then I also use Word because I think it's easier to spot typos
Yeah,
in Word. And then I upload to WordPress, which I know sounds like a lot, but because I worked in admin for a decade, I'm a really, really fast typer.
yeah.
Plus, I also qualified as an audio typist
Uh-huh.
back when I did when I worked in admin. So I'm a fast typer. And then so yeah, my editing process tends to be in the Word document, and then I upload it and fiddle about with it in there.
Yeah,
So
okay.
yeah.
Okay, there you go. More tools to play with. And again,
Yep.
they're basic. I mean, Word or the equivalent if you're on a Mac pages or something like that. And it's all you
Mhm.
need really to start to go for it. So brilliant.
Yeah.
Um, as I mentioned at the top of the show, and you've sort of covered it a little bit anyhow. One of the things that I like to talk about here is because very much this show is about helping and supporting people in the middle of the week when life has happened, shift has happened, as they call it, to be polite. And you're in the middle of the week and you think, what do I do next? It's that
Mm.
taking a breath, carrying on, and working through. So, what do you have any tips or tricks? Do I have any things that you do during the working week, or I mean, and you sort of mentioned some of them in terms of the way you manage your time and your energy levels, as you were talking about. But
Yeah.
but
For me, I'm very list driven.
uh-huh.
I like to have a list and I like the satisfaction of ticking things off the list. So because I have, many clients and competing requirements and deadlines and stuff like that, one of the things I do is I have a stack of post-it notes
Mhm.
on my desk. It was something I learned years and years ago from a productivity coach. Is when you think of something, write it down, stick it to one side so you don't forget it, but you're not distracted. So she said, like, put it in the waiting room. So when I think of things that I need to do, I just rewrite a little list and I have a smaller list on a post-it note. One of the things I do that I find really, really helpful because I use a lot of timers. So I'll either use the website is actually just called Egg Timer
Okay.
on, you search for it on Google. Other search engines are available still, I think.
I think so. Yeah.
Or I use my phone, and I just try and give myself sort of 20 minutes or 30 minutes of focused time.
Uh,
Um, yeah, I try not to get too distracted by things. So I use Slack and Blue to communicate with the team I'm in for one of my clients. I do have Slack on my phone, but I try not to check it. I don't log into the things that are going to distract me. Um, and to just keep me on track, I use my iPhone calendar for everything. It syncs with Google, but I also have a wall calendar which is here on the wall, so I can see my month mapped out. Um, I find anything I use on the laptop, I tend to forget about it. So I try and keep everything on my desk so that I can see it. I've got bits of paper everywhere because I'm always scribbling things down. But that's how I do it. I am sadly very, very analog for my own stuff. For client work, I'll use whatever tool they want. And then the other thing is because I saw this in your the pre-questions about staying focused. What I do when we're getting to the end of the week is I play really loud rock music.
uh-huh. Brilliant.
So on a Friday afternoon, when I've got something I have to get done, and I go, well, it's like 3:30, 4 o'clock. You've only got to do another hour. So what I do is I play Led Zeppelin. I don't think when Jimmy Page wrote Kashmir, that was what he had in mind, that somebody was going to use it to power them through the end of the week. But that's actually what I do. Um, you would think that loud rock music would be a distraction. It isn't. It helps me focus. I think if I put on something soft and gentle like Nora Jones, I'd probably just go to sleep.
No,
I'm
indeed.
not actually a Nora Jones fan,
Indeed.
so that's probably a bad example. But so it keeps me alert um to power through to the end of the week. So actually, yeah, weird tip, probably doesn't work for most people, but yeah, lots of loud rock music, usually Led Zeppelin or The Who, sometimes a bit of AC/DC. Not Sabbath so much because I get a bit overexcited with Sabbath. But yeah, something loud to power me through to the end of the week.
Brilliant. I
Um,
love that.
yeah.
I love that little. I'll have to try myself. I have to try myself. And you're right. Sort of soporific, sort of relaxing music is not the music you play when you want to rush through to the end of the week. Maybe when you're trying to de-stress, but not when you're trying to
Yeah.
power through. Yeah, power ballads. Maybe power ballads of
Power
the
ballads,
80s.
maybe, yeah. I mean, you get distracted and you join in the singing,
Yes,
which
there is
nobody
that.
wants to hear from me. Um, but yeah, I know a lot of people, they have this soft focus music.
No,
I don't have
indeed.
soft. It doesn't work. Loud focus music keeps me going.
No, I
Yeah.
love that idea, and if for those people who come across this later on, I'd love to have your experiences of try and listen to loud rock music, which yeah, AC/DC, AC/DC, Motorhead, all the kind of the bands of the 70s and was it 70s and maybe 80s. Some of them are into the 80s, but those sort of
Yeah, late
yeah
60s, mid
yeah
70s, so
mm.
that sort of Sabbath and Zepp and stuff. Yeah. Um, yeah, if it doesn't work, please don't blame me because I am making a disclaimer that I am quite odd and most people don't play rock music very loud. Blame my upbringing. My dad used to play music to me. He used to sing Pink Floyd to put me to sleep. You know. He used to sing the Division Bell when it was bedtime. So
there are
not
some
my fault.
relaxing Pink Floyd songs, not just the loud
There
ones.
are. There's some lovely, lovely
Mm.
Floyd songs. I think Floyd are prog rock, aren't they? They're
Yeah,
not rock
yeah,
rock.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, that's where it came from. We're a very music driven family. I mean, my brother is a professional musician. I'm not, but music is a massive, massive part of my life and what I do. So even though I'm not a musician, yeah, we've always got music on, constantly. That's really important to me. So yeah, so that's why I know a lot of people like silence. For me,
Mm.
you know, the music is because I listen to it all the time, I actually don't tend to notice it,
Yeah, yeah.
you know. It's not a distraction because my brain's just wired into listening for the sounds. So yeah.
No, you're right, and I think I mean, I like talk radio, but it's not something I do in the background while I'm working
No,
because
no, you couldn't
you
really.
you get distracted with the conversation and get frustrated when they talk about idiotic stuff. But
Yes.
But generally, you're right. Music is and isn't there there's something I do remember reading a while back um about driving and loud music and how when you're playing loud, energetic music, people drive tend to drive faster. So
Oh,
maybe there's
I
some
can believe that.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't recommend Sabbath or anything while you're driving. You know, there's a time and a place for everything. Not Nora Jones. Sorry, Nora, not a fan. Um, but yeah, there's definitely a time and place for what you're listening to. Yeah.
No, indeed, and I love that, and I'd love to hear people's experience of that. You know, if they put some comment in the comments, I'd love to hear that. It's brilliant. Um, we're coming to one of my favorite questions, and I didn't prime you beforehand to see whether you've remembered it, but this is the book question.
Yes.
Brilliant, good. And I'm open and honest about the fact that I nicked this off Tim Ferriss. Um,
Yep.
Tim Ferriss, you know, does the same in the end of his, you know, in his, which are you know streets ahead of what we're doing here, what I'm trying to do here. But basically, his premise was that if you talk to people who read and ask them what's their favorite book, it's generally the book that they're reading at the moment, or a book they've just recently read.
Yes, true.
When you're talking about them in a little bit more meaningful, you want to know what is a book that they would recommend other people to go, because that gives a little bit more of a link to who they are, what they are, and what they think is meaningful to share with others. Plus the fact it's a little bit more of a an extended book. So with that in mind, setting it a little bit, sort of, I'd love to hear what book you most recommend to your friends and colleagues.
Yeah, I love that question, because I am an avid reader. I have average about 110, 120 books a year. Obviously I have nothing better to do with my spare time. So that's interesting because until recently my answer always would have been the 4 hour work week by Tim
Uh-huh.
Ferriss. Um, but I think, you know, post pandemic, a lot of the things he's talking about, everybody's doing now, you know, hybrid working and stuff like that. So a book I'm going to start recommending to everybody. I've already had it in my newsletter. I don't think I put it on LinkedIn yet. It's called Rare Breed, and it's by Sunny Bonnell and Ashley Hansberger, and they run a branding and design company. And I saw it recommended somewhere in a group, and I bought it, and then I did that thing where, you know, the Japanese call it sundoku. You buy all these books and then they just you know, mount up. So I thought, right, I'm going to read this, and I absolutely loved it, and I wish I'd read it sooner. So the premise is that you don't is what we've been talking about today, is you don't have to do business in one particular way. And they started up their branding company. They were young, they were female, they were operating in a very sort of not rural, but it was a small town. And the people who were doing design and advertising were men for the most part. They had, these are the ways you do it. Um, and it was also that kind of, you can't do it because we've already done it and that's it. You know, there's nobody's going to do it as well as us. And you know, they really struggled at the beginning, and then they lent into it. And this is what I'm trying to do more and more, is just to go, look, this, I'm really weird, right? I'm really weird. I have a, you know, a Norse tree behind me. You know, I quote BoJack Horseman and Archer, whether you want me to or not. You know, I'm obsessed with Airplane. If you'd ask me my favorite film, it's Airplane. I watch it at least twice a year. Um, but this is what they're talking about, and I will say, you know, please read it. But there are some swearies in it. There are some, you know, they're very, very feminist, left wing. This is, you know, so if that's not your kind of thing, then don't read it. But they talk about how there are certain characteristics that would seem like negatives in business that are actually positive if you leverage them in the right way. Um, and it's about how it is about communication. It's, you know, and it's that thing that, again, I don't particularly like the phrase, but it's used a lot, is finding your tribe. And I really, really liked the way they described it, and the the way they talk about how they find people they want to work with and how they repel the people they don't want to work with. And that actually, you know, if you are a bit quirky, you should embrace that. If you're that's the dog again. If you're quite a you know, you might be quite obsessive, You might be very sort of a perfectionist. That's okay. There are ways to embrace that. And that's what I read. And so the reason it's called a rare breed is that because one of them, their dad said to them, you two are a rare breed. Not everybody's going to get it, but the people who do get it will really, really get it, and they're going to love what you do. And then they've worked with some really big names. They've been driven by their passions and about their commitment to their clients. And that's what I really loved because, especially because for me, and I guess it's probably my public sector background is I want to be helping people, but I'm not a doctor, I'm not a social worker. So I want to help the people who are helping the people.
Mm.
And I want to be working with those people who are passionate about making a difference, about making things better. And that's kind of what they're talking about is that, there are accepted ways, if you will, of how to do business and how to do things and how to communicate, and that's fine. But don't let that put you off. Is that actually you can be a rare breed. You can use swearies. You can wear like May King's known for wearing a hat. That's not funny. But you can have a distinctive
Mm-hmm.
look. You can have um a Norse tree behind you, which there is a meaning behind that. That you can be yourself, you can be a rare breed, and you will find people who want to work with you. And I just that's their overall message, which I really, really loved, that you will find the people who want to work with you. It seems hard, um, but you can do it, and you can be yourself and be successful and find other people who think like you, and that by finding those people, you will all be excited and energized about the work that you're doing, and you will make a difference. Um, and you will create things that you're proud of, no matter what people will tell you.
And so it's called. Is it called Rare Breed or a Rare?
Rare breed.
And who are the authors?
The authors are Sunny Bunnell and Ashley Hansberger. I will send you those in a message because they're if you look for Rare Breed on Amazon, it'll come straight up. But yeah, their names are a bit.
Brilliant. Oh, well, I'll put a link in the comments as well for those people who can who want to follow that, because it sounds like it's a really interesting book. And to be perfectly honest, while this is for other people to listen to as well, I this is one question I do for myself, because I like to collect interesting books, and there's so much out there
Yeah,
that if you just sort of trawl through it yourself, you wouldn't know. But so having personal
yeah,
recommendation is a great way of doing this. And
very definitely.
I am loving the sound of that book, Rare Breed. So I will definitely check that out. And you're so right. You're so right that and as I was saying this, one of the things that people rail against at the moment is the algorithm out
Yeah.
there, whatever that gives you what you think about and what you show, and shows you more of it. But I would imagine sometimes if you are creating trying to find people who are like you and things that are like you, then I would imagine sometimes the algorithm can help you.
Yeah, I would think so. Um, and it goes back to that thing about being brave again, about being brave enough to be
Yeah.
yourself, is that you will find people. And yes, sometimes things might be polarizing, even if you don't mean them to be. But yeah, the algorithm will work in your favor. And I think if you look at it that way, rather than getting hung up about, oh, it's the algorithm, is it reducing my reach? What does that even mean?
Yeah.
Reducing your reach? The people who are interested in your stuff will find your stuff,
Yes.
regardless of whether the algorithm shows it to them or not. You know, so I don't get. Maybe I should get more hung up about things like the algorithm and open rates and stuff. But I think the people who are interested in what you do will find you,
No.
and they will seek you out once they know about you. They'll go and look for your LinkedIn posts, your Instagram feeds, whatever. They will find you.
Indeed. And
Yeah, I don't think you should worry too much about it.
no, and I think you're right, and you hit upon the key way back in when we were talking about is consistency is one of the things. If you regularly um,
Yeah.
reminding the algorithm or the or whatever you're talking about the same sort of thing regularly, telling people who you are, what you do, how you do it, what makes you tick, what makes you what your passion is, etc. That will reinforce the message that goes out there, and that
Yeah.
message will get through.
Yeah,
Um,
it will. So don't worry too much that, it does feel like shouting into the void. It very often does, but you're not. People are taking notice even if they don't tell you, which is the annoying thing. Tell us, please. We're creatives. We need to know.
no, I
But
know.
yeah, people are noticing you. You know.
No, no,
You just
and you are right, and you're right in both ways. You're right that there are people just sort of following you and stalking you in the background. Because, to be honest, I do that the same. I follow people and I listen to people, and I don't always comment on them, um, for a number of reasons. A, sometimes I don't feel the need because someone has already done it,
yeah,
and also, sometimes I just like to just mooch. It's the like I
yeah,
said, the goggle bucks. I like to watch people.
yeah, yeah.
And so there are people out there, and you're right. On the flip side, please tell us. I'd like to know.
Yeah, and so sometimes you forget you're busy and you think, "Oh, I really like that," and you should have said something, but you forget that
Mm.
that's the thing, and that's fine. We're all busy people with many dogs.
Many dogs in that. Yes, indeed. I love this conversation. Like I said, we could carry on this conversation for ages, and talk about your tree. You before we go, you did mention there's a reason behind the tree. Share it with us. Why not?
So when I rebranded my business about a year and a half ago, I decided to lean into my sort of Viking roots. So my name is a Norse name. It comes from the Norse alphabet, the runes.
Hmm.
And Gudrun actually means the hidden rune, the rune, the symbol that represents God. I do have a Danish great grandfather, so it's not cultural appropriation. Um, but I'm really interested in history. I had a history podcast, I had a history blog, um, and I thought it'd be fun just to lean into that a bit more. When I did my rebrand, my logo, which I'm actually wearing like a loser, is it's the rune answers. It's the rune for communications,
Hmm.
which I thought was quite clever. And I wanted to sort of lean into that sort of medieval thing and to put across that I am a bit weird and that sometimes I will dress like a Viking. And then I went to an art fair last summer. Our neighbour was exhibiting some of her photographs. It was a sort of multimedia art fair. And I saw this on the opening night. Yggdrasil is the world tree. It's the in Norse mythology, it's the tree that runs through all of the worlds from heaven, which is not heaven in Norse mythology, but right through the world down into the underworld. And it's a tree that Odin hung himself from for 7 days and 7 nights. So one of the meanings of Yggdrasil is Odin's tree, Odin's barrow, because he hanged himself to bring knowledge to the world. And I saw it and I thought I've got to have that because it completely ties in with my branding, with my love of history and mythology. And so I put my name down for it the first day, and I'm hoping to find the I know who the artist is to ask him to do a similar painting but with my branding on it.
Brilliant,
Um,
superb.
to have that. So yeah, so it's in the background and yeah, I'm in a very small office, which is why it's really close behind my head. But yeah, it will go in my big office when I have one. Um, yeah.
And superb, and like I said, that's what we need to know. We need to hear about people, um, their their understanding why they do what they do, what it is underpins this, and that's exactly what will help people
Yeah.
understand, whether you're a right fit or whether you're not a right fit, and all that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
it's brilliant, and I love hearing that in the background. Um, well, as I said, we could carry on for a thing here. So I'll give some people some a little bit of time back. I'm sure I will pull you back on to have another conversation in the future. Um,
That would be lovely. Thank you.
but in
It's been a
the
lot of fun.
yeah, I know, and I've loved I love the all over nature of these conversations, which I love all of them. Before we go, where's the best place for people to find out a little bit more, and come and talk to you about Yggdrasil, and check out you looking like a Viking because I've seen the photo. Um, where's the best place for someone to follow you and say hi?
So my website, gudrunlauret.com. And so far for social media, it's all LinkedIn. So yeah, just search Gudrun Lauret Communications on LinkedIn. I'm there pretty much every day. I have a newsletter which you can sign up to via my website. I send out what I've been up to. I send out a random word of the week because I'm also obsessed with etymology, as if I wasn't weird enough. I share some little behind the scenes about life in France. And then yeah, the podcast as well. Which if I'm allowed to
Of course you are. What's the name of the
mention it.
podcast?
It's the apple cart, as in to upset the apple cart of the traditional ways of doing business. It's about being creative and disruptive in business and finding ways to be more yourself.
And
And
we
that's on my website, on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, and anywhere else that you listen to things.
Yes, and I would thoroughly recommend have a listening to that. And now you can find it because I remember when we first you first put
Yes,
it
I
out.
forgot to switch it on. And hopefully you come and be a guest, Mark, so that I can return the favor and have
No
you as a
problem. Yeah,
guest.
I'm happy to come along and have a chat with you on that. So book me in. Although what did we series 5 or 6 now? You're way
Yeah,
ahead.
probably. Yeah, season. I think you might get into season 4 if you're quick.
Brilliant, brilliant. Yeah, we'll book some time and I'll have a conversation. I'd love to do that. So brilliant having this conversation. I'd love to carry on. I'm going to give some people some time back. And we will be back again. And like I said, I'll definitely come on your podcast. So
Thank you. And thank you so much for having me today. It's been so much fun.
it has been. I've loved it loads. So I will just say ta-ta, and we'll see you soon. So just quickly, for those people who are coming across this, I'd love to say hi. If you'd love to come and have a conversation, then do please say hi and drop your details in the comment. I'd love to talk to you. But in the meantime, have a great second half of the week, and may your second half be your best half.